So I was watching Fast Money. It was the halftime report. This was Monday. Dan Koopman was being interviewed. He started talking about our economy, our current political system, how we have record low employment under Trump. The economy is growing. Trump is going to open up trade dialogues with China. Our national defense has never been stronger. Trump has done a good job of scaling back some aggressive legislation that's helping companies grow faster while still maintaining a very tight regulatory structure. These guys can get super aggressive. He did 2008 credit crisis. But Koopman also criticized Trump for a lot of things, for deporting illegal immigrants. And he said, well, I love some of his policies. I don't like the way Trump goes about getting things done. And he said, we need a unifier because this country is being torn apart. So he cited a pretty good example when Ronald Reagan was in office. Now, the comedian who made a living making fun of him or playing on Saturday Night Live was Joe Piscopo, who was actually great. Millennials probably don't know who Joe Piscopo is. I mean, he did so many commercials for Bud Light. Hysterical, just very, very funny comedian. And Reagan picked up the phone and invited Joe Piscopo to the White House to have a drink with him. And said, hey, buddy, why don't you come over, have a drink? You know, it's all fun and everything. And he said, that's presidential. Today, we have Alec Baldwin and others make fun of the president. This is Leon Koopman talking. And he says how we have Trump, who's tweeting how these people are not talented, how terrible Saturday Night Live ratings are. So Koopman says, you know what? This is not presidential. And he's right. He says that's dividing the country, despite Trump having some really good policies in place that are driving the U.S. economy, which, it's hard to argue. You look where stocks are, look at the economy is, low employment, a lot of good things going on. But surprisingly, during this interview, Koopman got emotional. And he actually had tears in his eyes about this. I mean, you can go CNBC, just type CNBC, Leon Koopman, and you'll be able to watch that interview. And when Scott Wapner, which, the judge, asked him, hey, Leon, why are you so emotional for? And he replied saying, I'm emotional because I care. And in 2020, people are going to have to make a decision on who they want to lead our nation. And he said, when it comes to Elizabeth Warren, she's not the answer because I don't need this person telling me and every other billionaire that we're deadbeats. I'd be crying too if I had his money and Warren got elected. Since 70% of everything he makes, at least going forward, is going to be gone. That's based on the new taxes and that structure she's going to levy on billionaires if she gets elected. And that doesn't include estate taxes. It doesn't include the wealth tax plan, which will tax the net worth of families who have more than $50 million, another 2%. Just for no reason at all. Oh, you have money? Well, we're going to take 2%. So, yes, I'm probably crying as well. I'm just joking, of course. Although I would definitely be upset. But in all seriousness, I understand where Koopman's coming from. And people act like the rich don't get taxed. Yet, out of these 140 million people in the U.S. who pay taxes, the top 1% accounted for more income taxes paid than the bottom 90% combined. Stat people don't tell you about. And let me tell you something about Leon Koopman. Here's a guy that was a plumber. He then became a quality control engineer at Xerox. This is 1965. Busted his ass in college, get an MBA from Columbia. Then joined Goldman, directly out of college, which he stayed at the company for 25 years, where he was voted the number one portfolio strategist by Institutional Investor for 9 consecutive years. By the way, if you work at Goldman, Morgan Stanley, especially back then, you're working minimum 80-hour weeks, minimum. I know I have friends there. It was crazy. It might be a little bit less now. I don't know if that's true, but you work at Goldman, you're there all the time. That's how you move up. That's how you become big. They like getting people in there from the start. They don't like hiring people where you're bringing all your outside, everything that you've learned, which they consider problems or influences. They don't want any of that in their culture. That's why they start from scratch. They like hiring people right out of college. They build these people up. So you talk about Goldman for 25 years, and that hard work led him to becoming CEO and president of Goldman Sachs Asset Management. Then he started his whole hedge fund, which you guys know, Omega Advisors, and became very successful. So Here's a guy who's working at least 14, 50-hour days for over 4 decades, busting his ass every single day. And when you work that much, trust me on this, you have to give up a lot of stuff. Not just, well, hang out with some friends, maybe going golfing every now and then. No, I mean, that's not the important stuff. But you also have to give up spending time with your family. I mean, even your kids, since you're trying to provide a better living for them, and it takes dedication to try to change the world for the better. So there's a mix. And me, I work tons of hours. I make sure I spend time with my family. I'll drop the kids off at school. I'm at events with them. It's awesome. But of course, I wish I could spend every minute with them. They're my kids, and I love them. But in the meantime, I'm trying to do something that's going to change the landscape of this industry, which has taken a turn for the worse. And it requires a lot of work. It requires hiring people. It requires being really involved, at least during these early stages, the first 5, 7 years. But you have to give up a lot. But Cooperman, here's a guy that worked harder than anyone else to climb the corporate ladder at Goldman and start his own hedge fund, become a billionaire. And what did the so-called deadbeat, because that's what she called deadbeat, do with his money? Koopman and his family committed $5 million in 2010 to anchor activities supporting Jewish identity, continuity among young adults. He donated $25 million to his alma mater, which is Columbia, to support the construction of new facilities. 2014, Koopman's Family Foundation pledged $25 million to the St. Barnabas Medical Center for the construction of a new 200,000 square foot pavilion. He launched a scholarship funding program in 2015 that assists high-achieving high school students in paying for their college educations. He served as a board member for the Damon Runyon Cancer Research Foundation. He's a charitable member of the Songs of Love Foundation. That's an organization that records personalized music for those facing chronic illnesses. He's also a member of the Giving Pledge. Maybe you might know that's what it's called, but that was started by Bill and Melinda Gates, which is a pledge for rich people, mostly billionaires, that they're going to sign where they're going to donate most of their wealth to charities. And in 2010, when this was launched, Gates was able to get 40 pledges. 2 years later, 69. Today, there are over 200 members, which include Buffett, Gates, Larry Ellison, Bloomberg, Zuckerberg, Harold Hamm, Paul Allen, Elon Musk, George Lucas, Barry Diller, Ted Turner, Paul Singer, and keep going, the late T. Boone Pickett, so many others. Now, if Elizabeth Warren gets elected, she wants to attack the shit out of billionaires simply because they're successful. And I'm not sure what she wants to do with this money, since a lot of the money flowing to charities from these people is going to be gone if she gets elected. But seriously, does she plan to distribute the wealth to people who hate to work, who will never work 15 hours a day or build something they're passionate about? Where's this money going to go to? Will it go to keeping the post office afloat, which lost $4 billion in 2018? You know how much it lost this year? It's on schedule, on pace, right? $4 billion last year lost. It's on pace to lose $7 billion. How do you lose $7 billion in a business? $7 billion this year. The post office is the same industry as UPS and FedEx. These companies generate billions in gross profits every single year compared to the post office, which loses billions, and it keeps getting worse. Why? Because the government sucks at running things. They don't have to be accountable. There's no accountants making sure that you're making ends meet or have enough cash to pay your bills, since the government can afford, well, shouldn't really use the word afford, but it can go underwater for 20, 30 years, whatever, offer tax credits for things like alternative energy in hopes that one day solar, wind, electric can one day replace fossil fuels, which, by the way, is never going to happen, at least for the next 200 years. I mean, the government can spend $80 million every year to look after wild horses. That's true. That's a fact. Want some other interesting things our government spends money on? $2 billion for refugee programs, $500 million to train 5,400 Syrian rebels to fight against ISIS. That amounts to $4 million per rebel. That's a lot of money. I don't know what kind of equipment they're using, but that's a lot of money. $10 million from the U.S. Agency for International Development that was spent to create a version of Sesame Street for Pakistani television. I'm not kidding. $10 million. And this project ended up being shut down since the managers at the puppet theater was stealing your hard-earned money, tax-paying money, What a surprise. 47 million to fund Atlanta's streetcar line, which goes from Centennial Olympic Park to the Martin Luther King Jr. Center, which, by the way, runs the exact same route as the existing subway system that's underneath it. But hey, let's spend money to build stuff we don't need. When it comes to billionaires, even when you see them interview, most of them have no problem paying a little bit more in taxes. Outside of maybe Ken Fisher, who I interviewed a few months ago, who basically said he hates giving money away, even for philanthropy. But most of them have said, look, we understand. Warren Buffett has said, even Lee Koopman said, I'm okay paying more money. They get it. But 70%, because Warren is attacking these people like they're the enemy, like they're assholes for being successful. It makes you think, what is the American dream? Come live in the home of the brave, land of the free, work your ass off to become successful, and start a family, buy a home. Maybe you decide to start your own business. You start hiring tons of great people. But you know what? Don't be too successful, because then you're one of those effing rich assholes. And we're going to tax the crap out of you and distribute this money to people who will never work as hard as you. Also distribute it to wasteful government programs that are never, ever going to work. I mean, the post office ever going to work? Seriously? And the public's going to hate you. Politicians are going to attack you. Actors, musicians, who ironically also have a lot of money, will also call you out as the enemy. I mean, what country do we live in? Does Elizabeth Warren realize that if she does this, and of course, this could be this could be a way for her to get votes, since we have a lot more poor people in this country than rich. And everyone, over 18 gets to vote, gets one vote. But if she really puts some of these measures into place, there's going to be a massive reduction in capital going to charity, which a lot of these charities need this money to survive, to explore, for research, for cures to diseases, to help underprivileged people. And that's gone. You're going to see billionaires move out of this country immediately, which means much lower income tax revenue, massive layoffs of U.S. workers as companies run by these billionaires are going to relocate their headquarters overseas. Of course, Warren knows this. She knows this is going to happen. So you know what this woman, what she does in her tax plan? She actually included strong anti-evasion measures where any billionaire leaving the country will immediately get hit with a 40% exit tax. She calls it an exit tax, which is going to be enforced by the IRS. I'm sorry. If you don't like cursing, turn this down. But you got to be fucking kidding me. I mean, you have to be fucking kidding me. So you're going to force people to stay here so you can tax the crap out of them and their families for life? Is that democracy? Is that the American dream? Because if you don't have a job, you'll love this policy. It means, hey, don't work hard. We're just going to take money from people who really worked, who are very successful. We'll give you some money. Maybe one time ever in the history of any nation where the distribution of wealth actually worked. Never. There's no studies, nothing, never ever worked. But for anyone who owns their own company and works their ass off, is trying to make the world a better place by disrupting industries, you now become the enemy of this country. And if Warren gets elected, the U.S. economy is not going to fall into a recession. It could fall into depression as soon as these measures are implemented. This includes she wants to double the capital gains tax. And what do you do when you have capital gains? Capital gains are a good thing. It means you're making money, right, on your investments. And what do you do with that money? You reinvest it. You buy stuff. It filters into the economy. You're reinvesting whatever assets. You're going to cut this as well? I mean, how do you plan to stimulate growth, stimulate jobs? Encourage our younger generation to work harder and innovate, right? That's our job as we get older, to teach the younger generation, listen, work hard. Get out there. Bust your ass. That's how you become successful. That's how you learn. Find mentors that are going to help you out. So forget if you're a Democrat or Republican. I mean, how does this make any sense at all? Because at the end of the day, what do we all care about most? Think about that. What do we care about most? It's building generational wealth so that our kids will have better lives than what we had. And every one of these policies that Elizabeth Warren is talking about goes totally against that, totally against the principles of what America was founded on. And I can't believe so many people actually love this. So I see Koopman's point. I also see him getting emotional about trying to have the country come together. We have a leader that understands business, understands how to grow the economy, but also someone that's presidential. Where this person is not attacking everyone who disagrees with them. Unfortunately, we don't have anyone running with these qualifications. But man, we live in some pretty crazy times.